Wait, what the frick?
What's up, guys, and welcome back to What the Frick podcast. Big news today. I will be sharing my second boy story ever, so here goes nothing, I guess. Have you ever had a guy friend just completely cut you off out of nowhere with no reason, no explanation, nothing? It's like one day you're here, the next day, boom, you don't matter. Well, that's happened to me. Twice, actually. I want to discuss the second time it happened because the first time is more of a intense story that I am not having the energy to get into at the moment. But the second time this happened to me, I realized all men are the same. But anyways, so let's start the story. I was living in Seattle at the time. So this was back in 2019 to 2020, right before COVID hit. And I had made friends with this guy, and the only reason we were friends was because our moms were actually friends. And when I was moving there, my mom was helping me, and she wanted to meet up with her friend, and she was like, oh, like, bring your son, like, introduce them, whatever. And it actually worked out because it wasn't just like our parents set us up to be friends. Like, we actually got along really well, and we just like kept hanging out, you know, as my time in Seattle went. And he was like my first real friend I had there. I didn't know a single person in Seattle, so having someone that had lived there their whole life and can kind of help me and, you know, tell me where to go, stuff like that was really helpful. And he was just actually just like a very nice, very charming, very funny guy who was my age. So this guy had a very flirty personality. He's just one of those guys that kind of flirts with everyone, whether he sees you that way or not. He'll just like, he's the kind of guy that will just like give you compliments, like be very attentive to you. Kind of every girl's dream, honestly, to have a guy like be there for you, but like in a way where like, you know, you're not quite, you know, you don't want to be with them like that, if that makes sense. I think we all kind of have those guys that we friend zone. But anyway, it was very strange. At the time, I had a boyfriend, a pretty serious boyfriend, and this guy knew about him. And he never tried anything with me that was, you know, bad or anything, but we would hang out one-on-one and he would make flirty comments to me, but he never like took it to a point where like it would have been inappropriate, if you know what I mean. Like, I think because his personality was so outgoing and so flirty and fun, like it felt okay. Like, there's always those people out there, you know what I'm saying? So he was just kind of like one of those guys. But it was weird because towards the end of my time in Seattle, and I was living there for about 9 months or so, he did tell me near the end, like, that he did like me and he was interested in me in that way. And I was like, you know, I have a boyfriend. Like, I've never seen you this way, and you know that. Like, I had never once given this guy any more physical attention than giving him a hug goodbye. So I was like, I don't know. And I know for any guys listening, they might be like, you're so dumb. Like, if a guy is going to hang out with you like that, he obviously likes you and you're just like using him for attention. And it's like, you know what? All girls like attention. All girls like to feel like we have friends and supporters around us. And this guy's personality was so fun and outgoing, and yes, he was flirty, but like I said, it never felt like he was crossing a line until he like had this conversation with me. So I felt like it was okay. And, you know, as girls, we do like attention and we do like to feel that, I don't know, positive energy from other people. So I get what you're saying, guys, but like, this guy knew where he stood. Like, he knew he was in the friend zone. I made it very clear because, like I said, I had a boyfriend. Anyways, we're having this conversation and I'm like, I'm sorry, like, you know, this is just like not where it's going. And so after kind of rejecting him at this bar, he did not take it the best. I ended up just Ubering myself back home. He didn't even say bye. He just kind of like looked and watched me walk out the door by myself. So I was like, that's kind of messed up because it was like pretty late at night, and I don't know. I mean, I'm perfectly capable of getting myself home by myself, but it's like you could have at least like watched me get in the Uber. I don't know. But anyways, so that happened, and then literally like an entire year goes by. I hadn't heard from him. I just kind of figured like he was hurt. I had ended up moving away from Seattle due to COVID, so we had no reason really to be talking anyway. And I just kind of felt like he was in the wrong for trying to kind of come on to me while I had a boyfriend. And after making various comments to him saying like no, he kind of was still pursuing that during that conversation. So he had not apologized or like tried to make amends after, just kind of being like, okay, whatever, and then like letting me walk out the door without so much as a like get home safe or like let's discuss this later because like we're actually friends or whatnot. So a year later, I'm in California with my friend, and I posted a Snapchat story of my location of me just on the beach, and I look at my phone and see that he has sent me a Snapchat, and he had swiped up on my story and said, hey, like I'm here too. And I didn't really respond at first because I was like, okay, like what do you want me to say? Like we haven't spoken in a year. And I get another Snapchat from him, and it's this whole long paragraph of him saying how sorry he is and how he should have, handled the situation better and apologized sooner, and just pretty much everything he should have said a year ago when the situation occurred. And I was like, okay, like it seems like he's understanding now what happened, and I'm a very forgiving person. I will forgive. I will never forget, never, but I can be forgiving, and I think people deserve second chances, and it seemed like this guy had kind of understood where he stood with me, and you can shoot your shot, go for it, but once I tell you where I'm at specifically in words to your face, like I think that needs to be taken respectfully. And I felt like if he wanted to, rekindle our friendship and this is his way of doing it, then fine, I'm down. So a few months later, he texts me and he's like, hey, I'm going to be in Phoenix visiting family. If you want to get together and grab dinner, like I'd love to see you in person and just like apologize to you in person. So I was like, okay, like again, I'm forgiving. I believe in second chances. And like I said, I had a really good time with this guy. Like he was very funny, very easy to talk to, just one of those guys that, you enjoy being around, even though it was not ever that physical connection that, you need to be romantic, whatever. So I go and have dinner with him, and it's great. Like, we're fine. He apologizes. It's like everything was back to how it was before the whole fiasco happened in Seattle. We went back to like talking semi regularly, like not every day by any means, but just like we could, have conversations, Snapchat each other every so often. Like it felt good again. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, I'm glad, we were able to recover from what had happened. And, he was aware that I was no longer with my ex-boyfriend, but he didn't like try to make any moves or like come on again. He just was like, saying like, oh, that sucks and whatnot. But I mean, I don't know. Guys are so weird. Anyway, this leads me into the main part of the story. So I was in Seattle in February, a week before Valentine's Day. That's how I remember it. And I felt like I should text him because he had obviously texted me when he told me he was going to be in Phoenix. So I was like, oh, like I should do the same. I was only there for like a day and a half because I was on a work trip, and I did not really have time to see him just because of the schedule. But I didn't want him to see that I was in Seattle just based off, social media, and think I didn't like try to reach out, because that wasn't the case. I just like did not have the time because of work purposes. So I text him and I'm like, hey, like I'm in Seattle, but like I actually don't really have time to see you. Didn't want you to think it was like anything else. Like, hope you're doing well. Just like something very generic like that. I forget what I said word for word. He never responded. And I was like, that's weird. Because usually he would always respond to me whether it was anything like important or not. And it had been like a full day too, and I was like, this is so weird. But he was still like watching my stories on Instagram, on Snapchat. I was like, okay, he obviously saw it, and it's not like, a Snapchat you can just ignore. Like, I sent you a text iMessage like that came to your phone, like I know you saw it. So I was like, this is so weird, but like again, I was working, so I just like didn't really have time to even think about it. So a week later, I'm on Instagram and he posts a picture and it's him and this girl. And the caption is, "My forever Valentine," with a heart next to it. And I'm like, it all makes sense now. Like, you got a girlfriend and you no longer want to talk to me. So I was like, okay. I was like, I mean, happy for you that you got a girlfriend and you're obviously very happy, but I was extremely annoyed that I was basically ghosted by someone who I considered a friend. And I'm going to analyze this on both sides here. Obviously, the male side is this guy clearly had feelings for you at some point or another. And obviously, I friend zoned, rejected him at one point, whatever. But he chose to like come back into my life as a friend and had made that clear. So it's just weird to me because it's like I wouldn't ghost one of my friends that's a girl. Like, they had to do something pretty bad for me to say I'm not going to talk to you at all with no explanation. You know what I'm saying? So I try to put guys on like the same level as I would my girlfriends, but clearly they don't do the same. And so what obviously happened was he no longer needed me in terms of like having someone to just like chat with and talk to, because he now had this girl who was giving him a whole lot more than I was, because obviously I wasn't, seeing him in a physical way, didn't even live in the same state, like yada yada. But I just find it so rude that he couldn't even have the decency to like text me back, whether he had like lied or not, and said like, yo, like I have a girlfriend now. I would have been like, okay, cool. Like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, good for you. It's just weird. I feel like guys don't think in the moment, because I mean, a lot of the times guys will get girlfriends and they are using you as like this weird placeholder because they don't have anybody. And as soon as that thing or that relationship ends for them, they kind of come running back and just expect you to be waiting, to help them through whatever it was. And it's like, you can't just take me out of like this bookmark placeholder in your life whenever you so choose and it's convenient for you. If this guy was smart, he would have texted me back and said, hey, no worries, like have fun on your work trip, catch you next time. Because like I wasn't even asking to see him. I was saying, yo, like I'm here, but just so you know, I can't hang out because it's for work. Like, he could have said that and I would have never known that he like didn't want to talk to me anymore. Like, it wouldn't have been a thing. But instead he just chose to completely ignore and ghost me, which left me just annoyed and thinking like, you don't even have the decency to like say something. And if you're doing it out of respect for your girlfriend, I respect that, because it's like some girls don't like their boyfriends to be talking to other girls, especially if they maybe had prior feelings for them or whatnot. But I don't know. I would prefer to either be lied to and told like, hey, like it's all good, like see you next time, or something quick like, hey, like I don't know. It's like, if you come into my life as being a friend, don't you want to stay a friend? I don't know. I don't know what the good response for him would have been, but being completely ghosted by somebody who had been your friend, done you wrong, come back and, apologized, repurposed themselves into your life just to kind of wrong you again, didn't really sit well with me. And we're no longer friends by any means. It's obviously now like November and we haven't, spoken since I sent that text with no response. So it is weird, but like he does still follow me on everything. He does still watch all my stuff. So I'm like, thanks for being a fan, I guess. But I don't know what even the moral of this story is. This is the second time that this has happened to me, like I said earlier, and I will go over the first time in further detail another day. I'm just kind of annoyed, and I just like don't know why he couldn't like think a little bit further down the road. I think guys are very like present creatures, and they don't really think about the future and how their words could affect them later on. because again, had he just responded and said, hey, you're all good, no worries, like, hope you're well, I would have never known that he didn't want to talk to me anymore. And then, like, had this girlfriend and him, not gone on well and they had broken up, he could have, texted me and said, like, hey, how are you? What's up? Like, I would have never known, But instead, he just ghosts me, and then I assume it's because, well, I don't assume. I know it's because he no longer needs me to be that person to just kind of, like, talk to casually anymore, because he's got someone, giving him way more than I would. So, yeah, that is just sort of the story, I guess. I originally just felt like I wanted to share this story, and it's kind of a funny story because I do consider it one of my, like, boy stories, but it's like I never even dated this guy or kissed this guy. Like, the most we've done is hugged. So it's just funny that someone who you never even were romantically connected with can have such a big impact on the way you see them, and just, again, how I see men in general. It's like we didn't ever date, but I mean, there are other men who would do this to you. So it's just interesting. And it's like the people that you think you're closest to sometimes and really support you will literally just, like, flip and kind of just toss you to the trash and just pretend like you don't exist to them because it's more convenient for them. So I don't know. I wonder if I'll hear from him one day. Our parents are still friends. He's a really great guy and very fun to hang out and be around, but I don't know. I'm good with second chances. When it comes to, like, a third chance, I'm not quite. It's a little bit rougher. I mean, I think I would forgive him, but it's like, I don't know. I don't like to feel wronged, especially twice by the same person. Again, I don't feel like I did anything wrong because I made it very clear from the beginning where I stood. And, like, did I allow him to give me compliments and, like, go on one-on-one, hangouts with him? Yeah. But I don't see that as me leading someone on when I made it very clear that, one, I had a boyfriend at the time, and two, I'm just like, I'm not into it. I mean, this could be interpreted as me friend zoning him and him getting mad and saying, frick you, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And that's an opinion to have. So, but this is just my opinion on the story and how I felt about it. And I just would have appreciated a little bit more respect and empathy on his side of things, especially after he had wronged me that first time. So if you're listening to this, that's my side of things, and that's how you made me feel. I always worry that I'm going to sound bitter when I talk about these guys, and it's like, I really am not. Like, it's obviously been months since this happened, and I've, processed it and worked through it. But I want to tell these stories to you guys kind of with the emotions that I had at the time I was going through it, even though I'm perfectly fine. Like, I don't need to have this person in my life to feel, fulfilled. but yeah, I basically just want to tell these stories with all the emotion that I had at the time. So if I ever sound bitter or annoyed or upset, it's because that is literally how I felt at the time. But you should all know that I would not release any of these stories if I was not 100% healed and moved on from the fact. So something to keep in mind. And thanks again for listening. I will see you guys next week. It will probably not be another boy story. I need to take a break from these for a minute. But thank you all again for listening. Again, if you don't follow us on TikTok or Instagram, it is at What the Frick Podcast. And if you're a guy out there and you're thinking of ghosting one of your best girlfriends because you found a new girl to date or someone new to be around, maybe think through if you are totally cool with never seeing this actual friend of yours that's a girl, because at some point she's just gonna get fed up with it and not forgive you again. And with that, I will see you guys next week. Bye.